Hello and welcome to The Broken Sword, your YouTube home for The Lord of the Rings and all things J.R.R. Tolkien. In today's video we look at what may happen if Saruman fought the Witch King of Angmar.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
In today's video we will look at the strengths and weaknesses of two characters, one aligned with the Dark Lord Sauron and one just feigning to. The loyalty of the first is unquestioned, but the allegiance of the latter is his own, as are his dark counsels. In this video we answer a question submitted to us on Patreon. Is Saruman able to destroy the Nazgul, generally speaking, and in particular, what might happen if Saruman of many colours should come between the Nazgul and its prey? Let us start today with Saruman of many colours. He is an ancient being of great power, and his voice has powers of persuasion that border on hypnosis, a power we've seen used by a few different characters throughout Tolkien's Legendarium, notably put to use by Glaurung, Father of Dragons, and to great effect back in the First Age. When considering what may happen if these two went toe-to-toe, we have to keep these issues in mind, but we cannot be overly dedicated to the letter of the rules as established in universe. We've seen this time and again in Tolkien's writing, that of a less powerful or unlikely figure rising to the challenge and overcoming what might otherwise seem unlikely or even impossible on paper. Saruman's drive and ambition in the films seem to represent a loyal servant to the Dark Lord. The Nazgul are powerful creatures if they close the distance between the foe and their knife. Saruman, however, has the ability to speak as though reason and contrivance of logic was magic in its own right. The voice of Saruman is able to convince, and it's not purely magic, it is a gift, one that has been nurtured by Saruman's many years of study in the ancient lore while he maintained the fortress at Isengard. We must also acknowledge Saruman and Sauron are of the same kin. That is, they are of the lower chorus of Ainur, the lesser angelic spirits, each with a given domain and purpose within working of the world and its universe, which are of course called the Maiar. Saruman too thinks himself something of a ringmaker, a bit like Sauron as well, although never anywhere close to his level. He gets first mentioned in the stories by Gandalf when he tells Frodo of his strange behaviour in the years after Bilbo's party and subsequent departure, a time that really began to change the White Wizard. But what about the Witch King? The Ringwraiths, likewise, are completely divested of their mortal remains. They stalk the footsteps of the hobbits along their route under cloaks that render them into black men who go about in the dark. Another change to the book is interesting because it gives us a look at the Witch King's character that isn't really shown in the movies. As Frodo is readying himself to leave the Shire, he hears someone calling on him. He pays it no mind but remembers this moment. The stranger who came asking for Baggins. This was Camul, second in command after the Witch King. He was the one almost on Bilbo's very doorstep. But this kind of mental power is definitely something that the Witch King possesses too. This brief example gives us a look at the Nazgul, that is, their intelligence and active measures they have been shown to take of their own volition. The Nazgul are not mindless, empty vessels, but intelligent beings. They are not unintelligent vessels, or, like orcs, merely fingers of the Dark Lord's malice which spread over and across the lands of Middle-earth. There is much of what drives Sauron and his lust for power in those who serve him. The rings which granted them such a natural long life came with unintended side effects, notably that of gradually fading out of being, losing all corporal form and attachment to the good earth. Except in Sauron and perhaps Tom Bombadil, it is likely Saruman was the most powerful being in Middle-earth, and contested in that only by a handful of characters ever, and those capable of truly resisting him at the height of his powers was a small collection indeed, though his powers have diminished by the end. In their reunion at Isengard, Merry even explains to Aragorn what had befallen the trapped wizard prior to their arrival. They pushed, pulled, tore, shook and hammered, And clang, bang, crash, crack, in 5 minutes they had these huge gates just lying in ruin. And some were already beginning to eat into the walls, like rabbits in a sandpit. I don't know what Saruman thought was happening, but anyway, he did not know how to deal with it. His wizardry may have been falling off lately, of course, but anyway, I think he has not much grit, not much plain courage alone in a tight place without a lot of slaves and machines and things, if you know what I mean. Very different from old Gandalf. I wonder if his fame was not all along mainly due to his cleverness in settling at Isengard. No, said Aragorn. Once he was as great as his fame made him. His knowledge was deep, his thought was subtle, and his hands marvellously skilled. And he had a power over the minds of others. The wise he could persuade, the smaller folk he could daunt. That power he certainly still keeps. There are not many in Middle-earth that I should say was safe if they were left alone to talk with him, even now when he has suffered a defeat. Gandalf, Elrond and Galadriel, perhaps, now that his wickedness has been laid bare, but very few others. His abilities to persuade would be of little use to the Witch King as depicted in the Peter Jackson films, but against a Black Captain who can follow clues and seek out hobbits, their obvious intellect makes them more, not less, vulnerable against a foe like Saruman. Let's not forget that he was able to imprison Gandalf within the walls of Orthanc, which is different from the scene in the film where Gandalf is basically made to headspin on the floor. It was even considered that Saruman might attempt to capture the Nazgul, or the entire company of them within Orthanc as Gandalf tells Frodo. He has powers still, I think, while in Orthanc, to resist the Nine Riders. He may try to do so. He may try to trap the Nazgul, or at least to slay the thing on which it now rides the air. That Saruman would dare to attempt such a thing speaks of his skills, his confidence, and to some degree the notion it was a possibility. For all his flaws, and they are numerous, we get no indication Saruman is outright stupid. Misled, sure. Misguided, definitely. But he was no fool. What this would do in an outright fight between he and the Witch King is hard to say, as it is unlikely to result in any physical combat. Unless Saruman gets within reach of the great black mace wielded by the Black Captain, unlike the flail he equips during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields in Return of the King. There are other abilities not shown to us in the films that might surprise non-book readers, like the way he conceives of and employs the use of illusions. Most of what we learn of Saruman is second-hand information, but the sources are trustworthy, so it is hard to not take them as fact. When speaking to Gimli, who had just said he wished to see if Saruman really looked like Gandalf, if you've ever read the book, Gandalf's answer is quite surprising. He says, "And how will you learn that, Master Dwarf?" said Gandalf. "Saruman could look like me in your eyes, if it suited his purpose with you. And are you yet wise enough to detect all his counterfeits?" Another example of this comes from what Gandalf suggests when he is, for all intents and purposes, trapped, ironically, in the most secure fortress in Middle-earth. Pippin asks. "What's the danger?" asked Pippin. "Will he shoot at us, or pour fire out of the windows, or can he put a smell on us from a distance?" "The last is most likely, if you ride to his door with a light heart," said Gandalf. "But there is no knowing what he can do, or may choose to try. A wild beast cornered is not safe to approach, and Saruman has powers you do not guess. Beware of his voice." With all of this though, I wouldn't say it is a foregone conclusion. It is possible that on a good day the Witch King could still take out Saruman. If we look at what Peregrine Took says to Lord Denethor when asked how he, a mere halfling, had survived while the great captain of Gondor, Boromir, had died. "The mightiest man may be slain by one arrow," he said, "and Boromir was pierced by many." If the same can be applied to Saruman, to what extent his incarnate body is truly immortal can only be guessed at. We know when he dies, he gets killed with just a simple knife in the scouring of the Shire when he is known as Sharky. Now, whether he could withstand anything more than that when at a higher level of his power is hard to say, but I do not feel it would affect the durability of his body much at all. After all, the Astari were given old bodies for a purpose. bodies meant not to be tested too hard. That was never the purpose of their journey. A fight between the two, though, if it came down to it, might play out the following way. Saruman has made it clear to Sauron that he intends to be more than a mere vessel of a greater darkness, and reveals himself to Sauron as the Ringmaker, a multicolored wizard that he so desired to be. Sauron's laughter would give way to mystification, not the least of which the sudden turn in attitude, but the change in clothing was able to shock the Dark Lord in a way that one would think impossible. An immortal spirit with the drive and determination to dominate the world is not the best co-pilot, and Sauron lets it be known that the Nine will be shortly to celebrate his new career path. They arrive by way of their foul beasts, while the Black Captain is in the vanguard and his flaming blade is held aloft. In the movies, the wizardry at work on the Fellowship as they attempt to cross the Caradhras is shown to be Saruman's doing. In the book, it is not this simple, and it may well be Sauron's doing that drives them underground and into Moria. But the power itself is not beyond Saruman, so as the foul beasts drive through the air and the darkness splits with the violence of sudden lightning as the flaming sword breaks against the battlements of Isengard, Saruman's voice echoes through the air and he speaks in a foreign tongue. The sky turns into a whirling tempest, and the clouds begin to cloud the vision of the Witch King, disorientating the other Nazgul, drawing the Witch King himself into an individual encounter. The Witch King descends and disappears in a cloud of dust, making with the darkness about him as he attempts to slip by Saruman. But before he can drive the blade home, and true, the robe of many colours is so off-putting that an audible gasp gives away his position, and, in his wrath, Saruman forces another foe to break down against their will. The Witch King is sent high into the heavens and passes by the high stars once more. He is derobed, locked down, and unable to escape. A prisoner now of Isengard, a prisoner of Saruman. With that, the other Nazgul flee back. With their leader imprisoned, they stand no chance, and Saruman has shown off some of his true power. So there we have it, a fun answer to a hypothetical question, and his purpose in doing so was really to mainly inform on the story and elements of that story which may not be as widely known. We have looked at what if Saruman took on the Witch King, and at the end of it all, one of the Maiar, the most powerful of the Astari sent to Middle-earth, would surely be too much for the leader of the Nazgul. Yes, the Witch King may have been imbued with the power of Sauron and a great leader of his armies, but when it came to challenging more than just beings who feel fear quickly, those with great magical abilities too, that did not mean certain victory. We must also remember that in The Lord of the Rings, Gandalf was able to fight off several of the Nazgul when he travelled as the Grey, and he was weaker than Saruman at this time. So this is another strong factor to show Saruman would have the power to overcome his opponent. Saruman was a very smart being. He would know to daze and confuse the Nazgul as a group, with splitting them up being the safest course of action. If he could subdue the Witch King quickly, the others would not follow. So by the powers of his voice, his fortress, and his magic, Saruman to me would be our winner. With that now though, it is time for my question of the day, which is, what versus matchups would you like to see next? Any ideas at all would be awesome to hear. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this in the comment section below. And now to shout out our patrons. You guys are amazing in supporting our short film project, and we are making great progress. Cannot thank you all enough. We have the Divine Power tier members of Kevin and Abram, the Fire Demon tier members of Nashith and Gregory, and the Wizard Staff tier members of John, Andrew, Jennifer, Hunter, and David too. You are all true legends of the Pro Hero. Finally, if you have managed to reach the end of this video with me today and you are enjoying what you see on the channel, then please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon too so that you can get all notifications ticked so you know when all future videos go up. And so, thank you for spending just some of your time with me today. I hope you are all having a great end of the year, holidays, hopefully just some time off to round off 2022, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.